and to see if you qualify. Well, most elderly people want to stay at home as long as possible, but few can afford the high cost of home care for very long. One solution is to tap into the equity built up in your home. Reverse mortgages are becoming increasingly more popular option for financing with our aging baby boomer population. Our Legal on 4 contributor, Craig Wisnam, joins us now with the pros and cons of the reverse mortgages. Welcome. Tell us first, what is a reverse mortgage?
Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It is designed for people who are 62 years of age or older, so it's a limited class of people. But essentially, you know, when you normally buy a house and get a mortgage, you borrow a big lump sum of money and have to pay them back a little bit at a time. On reverse mortgage, instead, they pay you a little bit of it at a time, and eventually when you either die or move out of your home, then you have to pay them back the big pile of money you've been borrowing all this time.
So you would sell the house, and then whatever they get first dibs on the money at sale of the house, and then you can distribute the rest to heirs.
The ideal is that you can continue to live in your house as long as you're physically able, and they're not going to force you to sell the home. At a certain point, you may use up the money they're paying you and not get any more payments, but at the very least, they're not going to say, okay, it's time to pay up, sell the home. The problem is, though, if you have to move out of the home for health reasons, if it's no longer possible to get help, home health care, or to afford that, then once you move out, you have to pay them off, which normally means having to sell the home at that point.
So is that the biggest con against a reverse mortgage?
It is. It's also something that has to be very carefully tailored to a person's situation. There are other options, like perhaps a home equity line of credit is something else people could look at and talk about with their banker that may work a little bit better in their situation. That's where you don't have to take money out, but you have that liquid cash available to borrow on if you need it.
I also understand that getting into one of these reverse mortgages is pretty expensive.
The closing costs are a lot more expensive than your traditional mortgage. They're probably about twice as much. So you have to take that into account in terms of the overall, is this a good deal or is this a bad deal, as part of that process. And as you say, it's not something, because of those closing costs, that it works very well to change your mind on once you've done it.
Yeah, I think that probably a lot of people would frown upon the reverse mortgage because parents always want to leave something to their children, and they don't want to use up the equity in this house. Do you find that to be the case?
It does. Obviously, if people have long-term care insurance, they may not need to worry about this. They may not need that reverse mortgage. And yes, eventually, even if they're able to live there their whole life and they pass away in their own home, it's going to be sold, and assuming they borrowed enough money and got enough payment, they may need to give all that money over to the bank rather than to their children or their other heirs.
And the payments, can they come monthly? Can you work that out or a lump sum? How does that work?
Generally, the idea of the reverse mortgage is it's on the monthly, regular basis. You have to kind of take it whether you want it or not. And that's one thing different, for instance, with a home equity line of credit, where you don't necessarily have to take money if and when you don't need it. So that's an option people should look at if they're considering it. And of course, as we've learned in this market, read the fine print, understand all the details, understand all the costs, understand all the limitations before you get yourself into this, and make sure all of those things are what you want to do.
Okay, yeah, because there's probably a lot of little teeny tiny print that you need to go over with a big magnifying glass.
Yeah.
All right, Craig, thank you so very much. Protest in